we've got a bit of a problem. I had to take the last 2 days off, and from tomorrow on, the rest of the week is just gonna be full on rain. So that's not optimal for working out here. But most importantly, we gotta pick up lots of wood to continue building out the back. And I really don't wanna do that when it's raining because everything has to go on the roof. But before we hit the road, I wanna enjoy the cold morning a bit and work on some more pieces to glue in for the frame. So let's get it all set up, measure everything out and get cutting. While I'm shaking the metal paint, let me explain a bit what the plan is. I'm gonna put in rivet nuts that will hold up a frame similar to back here, and then there's gonna be insulation and a piece of plywood on there, and yeah, that has to be enough. And then I'll double it up, make some little shelves, and have another piece of plywood. Before we do that though, I wanna take the opportunity, because I have way too much insulation, to actually double insulate it. So here's the exterior wall of the van, and then we have kind of a doubled up wall. So I'm gonna put some insulation in here and then put the plastic trim piece back on with some wiring channels for a 12-volt outlet, and then we can bolt and glue these in. So I cleaned everything up and I decided to head out to the hardware store and lumberyard right after lunch. First, 3 more packages, some splicing connectors, and we're opening them because one of them should be helpful for the big lumber hole. And in here we have some of these threaded inserts. This is the exciting one, a little ratchet set. Here we go. Oh, not that. Jesus Christ. That's bright orange. That should really help tie the sheets of plywood to the roof of the van. Talking about the van, let's get it ready for the big haul. I'll have lunch and then I'm gonna see you on the road. That's not going anywhere. Probably take that with me. No, that was super exhausting, but I got free ice cream. So yeah, off to the hardware store number 2. Now we've got some lifting to do. I'm completely drenched, but I got it all up. I think that should work. But yeah, it's 50 kilometers on the highway. I'm gonna take it slow. See you back at home. Just made it home, but now it looks like it might start raining around here. So let's get all the wood into a dry space. Now, I didn't explain at all what kind of wood I got and why I had to drive so far, but I think I'm gonna tell you in the next episode when we're actually gonna use the wood. But one thing I can tell you, the gas mileage is so bad with all that stuff on the roof, and it was incredibly loud, even though I only did like 90 kilometers an hour. I have a feeling that I'm gonna have the best night of sleep in a long time after all this work today, and probably quite some sore muscles tomorrow. So to wrap off the day, I'm gonna cut the 5-meter long pieces down in half so I can put them in the basement where they aren't getting too wet, and then that should give us a really nice lumber supply for the rest of the van build and probably for some projects later on. But yeah, I'll get to that when it's time. Well, just as we thought, it's raining, so I got the rainy weather setup going with the van halfway under the carport, and as always, table saw and workbench. So yeah, it's gonna be a cozy day, but unfortunately it's super dark in the van, so I think I'm gonna throw the lights on again and just hope it won't drain my car battery completely. So let's get that going. So first up, I think time has come to finally cut down the sleeves so that I'm not gonna hit my head on there anymore. So let's mark that up, and then I'm gonna trim it down with a little pool saw. It doesn't have to be the perfect cut because there's gonna be a trim piece. I'm not gonna fix it permanently to the van just yet because I still need to put one coat of paint on the ceiling, but at least in the meantime it's gonna look a little bit nicer when I'm working in here. Actually, marking them up is kind of a stupid idea. I'm gonna cut out a little piece of wood that's exactly 9 millimeters in height, and then that should give a perfect guide for the pull saw. that's a wrap on the vents. Much more finished now, but big mess in the van. So let me clean that up and then we can continue working on the frame. Now while that's drying up, I've been thinking for like an hour about what's next in the van build. And let me show you some thoughts around the door. I always thought I pretty much had only two options, to either keep the window or get rid of it. And I was pretty certain that I was gonna just cover it up, paint it white from the outside, insulate it from the inside, because that would really help with possible break-ins, because then no one can look into the van and it looks a little bit sleeker. But also it would just be kind of a waste of window space, I think. So I drew something up for my Instagram story. The orange stuff would be the same as the ceiling wood paneling. And then in blue is a little fold-out table, which would, one, work as window shades, because then I wouldn't have to have curtains. That would give me a little working nook, even though it's super cramped in here, and the bedside table, plus the view. I don't know if I'm missing something, but I think that would be a super cool compromise. Pretty much getting the best of both worlds. Please let me know somewhere in the comments what your thoughts are, or if you have any other ideas how you'd go about that. Thanks in advance. And now I think the wood glue is dry enough so we can finish up the 3 pieces. And I'm really low on energy today. I think the rain is kind of draining me. Also, yesterday was so exhausting with lifting around all this wood. So I think I'm gonna call it a day quite soon. I hope I can edit this before the weekend, so you only have to wait a week in between episodes. So I hope that's a trade-off you're okay with. Well, never mind, it's so humid outside. This thing needs some more hours to dry. So thanks a ton for watching. Leave a like and I'm gonna see you in a week.